So, we all know that Megadeth has a new lineup now, but it kind of begs the question of what people such as Chris Broderick or Shawn are doing now. And the answer to that question, actually, for those two come in this band, which is Act of Defiance, with their first album here in 2015 entitled The Birth and the Burial, or simply Birth and the Burial. These two guys were both members of the fabled thrash metal band, but they also hooked up with the Scar the Martyr frontman and also another player, which is from Shadow's Fall, to create a kind of a supergroup, which is... It's interesting whenever you consider those couple of bands and the influences that they come from, and it's interesting to see and to consider what this would potentially be. What this album actually ends up becoming, this 10-track affair, it's a thrash metal album, and it's one where the influences of a band such as Megadeth, which the two first individuals that we spoke about were a part of for a little while, really shine forward, and it's because of the instrumentalization. The overall body of work definitely showcases a lot of Megadethisms, so it definitely seems like their time within that band, what you heard is a direct influence of their own creative capacity intermixing with Dave Mustaine. So let's stop talking about other bands for right now, and let's talk about Act of Defiance strictly. This 10-track affair is one that blends that old-school thrash metal charm with a little bit of modernization. The Scar of the Martyr vocals are the one thing that, for some individuals, may give this thrash album a little bit of distinction. It's one that has a little bit more of a kick behind it. You're not hearing the very plain-chested vocals. Instead, this is one that kind of combines a little bit of the deeper, more growl or shout style vocals alongside the standard singing. And this mix actually provides a little bit more of an oomph or a punch to this disc. And it does so because the music that swirls surrounding it kind of makes you wonder what would happen if Megadeth ever adopted a style such as this one, and what it would sound like, and would they be as legendary of a band if they adopted something along this capacity. And I think that to a certain degree, whenever it comes to the vocalization, Dave Mustaine is one of a kind, and that's one of the draws. But with Act of Defiance, this one of its kind, should I say, approach definitely provides with something very, very interesting. We have virtuosic sounding guitar work that's laced behind some very good percussion, and then these vocals that really propel, as opposed to really kind of the vocals end up just being another tool in the tool belt instead of being the main thing that a lot of people focus on. So you get the songs that start this album off, such as Throwback and Legion of Lies, and you start to realize that this is definitely one where, lyrically speaking, if it really depends on who it was written by, it sounds like maybe there's a couple of knocks being kind of, some punches being thrown a little bit by these former band members to some of their respective previous projects. I'm thinking of two individuals in general, but I don't know if that's necessarily what the frame of mind really was. If it was, then this is certainly one that's... It's not direct enough in order to suggest that, but at the same time, the implication certainly exists. Whenever you continue through this album, the one thing that kind of overpowers everything is the guitar work, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The guitar work on this is very strong and boasts a lot of charm. It's something that certainly gives this a little bit more credibility than one would expect. For supergroups such as this one, you would expect that you would need a couple more heavy hitters in your lineup in order to really arouse a lot of attention, but that's actually what makes this album it gives it a little bit more charm, principally because it's kind of an underdog. It's something that you want to explore as a fan of some of these other projects, just to see what they're able to come up with, and you leave pleasantly surprised. It's a very solid offering whenever it comes to that regard. And the work is certainly one that combines a little bit of that neoclassical ideal with some blinding sweeps, and then really finishes it off. The cherry on top is just a good old-fashioned thrash metal exterior. At times they're able to combine a little bit more of that softer style, more modern, almost single variety Megadeth charm to some introductions to some tracks, but it usually will always descend back to its main root, which is the thrash metal. Great songs on this album include Dead Stare, which is a fantastic track, and I really enjoyed the first half of this album, and then the final track, Birth and the Burial, certainly ended this disc on a very, very strong note. I really think that this is a band that has a lot of potential, and they showcase what they have in store for us whenever they continue on this album. I think that the songwriting is something that gets a little bit repetitive as you flow through this, and I think the reason for that is this is a first album. They kind of had a little concrete idea that surrounded them. They were coming from essentially three styles that had some differences, but ultimately had a lot of similarities. So whenever the writing came, it was something that happened very naturally, but that explorative process of really carving out a unique identity has not happened as of yet. If this project continues, which I hope that it does, I feel that that's going to become a little bit more apparent and a little bit more of a forefront for this group. I don't necessarily think you're going to see this band descend into, 10-minute long thrash metal / progressive metal tracks. Either that or decide all of a sudden that they're going to turn into a deathcore band. But I can definitely see the songwriting going a little bit further and perhaps a little bit more care and precision being taken for some of the finer elements of this disc. I think that this is an album that was, they were just so excited to put out that they recorded and were happy with it. I think the album number 2 will have a little bit more of those perfectionist touches. Either that or it's something that it does need. Because at times this album can seem just to kind of drone a bit. And as much as I really enjoy the project, that is kind of a shortcoming. It's also a disc where I don't find myself immediately wanting to throw it back on and kind of relive the journey all over again. This is certainly one that's a one sitting and then you have to kind of walk away from its style of disc, even if you're a big fan of virtuosic guitar work. You may still be impressed by it, you may still want to be floored by it once again, but you're not necessarily reliving the entire 10-track experience. You may just be going back to 1 or 2 tracks that stand out for you. Based around that, pretty good album. Really great debut. Very, very excited to see where this project kind of goes from here. I would give this album an 81 out of 100. Solid work, solid effort. Really love the membership of this group. I think it clicks very well. The vocals at times can be a little bit overbearing, but I think the combination, and like I said, if this project were to continue, that little perfectionism that comes with artists as they mature as a group will certainly serve to benefit this group very, very well. And I think this is an album that just needs picked up based around the idea that this is a strong side project. And this is an album that certainly at least demands that little bit of exploration. I want to know what you guys think about Act of Defiance. I want to know what you guys think about Birth and the Burial. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think that this was a good project for Broderick and Drover and the others to undertake in? Did you really enjoy this, or was this one that's just another kind of side project supergroup for you, not really your cup of tea? Let me know, and we will talk about it. I'm coverkillernation. I'll talk to you later. I find out what the hell's going on outside. What a noise. Road construction. Still, 3 months later. Fuck this town.